Alright, and welcome back to more Resident Evil 2 Knife Only. After going through Claire's A scenario, let's complete the playthrough by going through Leon's B scenario. So this is essentially the second half of the game, and therefore it will likely contain a little less commentary than scenario A, because I already went through all of the basics before. And if you can make it through scenario A, you can also make it through scenario B. And even though it is meant to be harder, it's not that big of a difference. It's just that you get more powerful enemies early on, or certain sections simply contain more enemies. Sometimes a lot more in fact. And of course, the green guy, Mr. X or the Tyrant, is constantly stalking you. So for the most part, the commentary will consist of explaining how to avoid taking damage. Or at least how to take only minimal damage. Because I do make mistakes, of course. But the point is that you have a limited amount of healing items, and even though at the end of the playthrough I still have lots of healing items left, remember that if you screw up only a couple of times, you can go through your healing items quite rapidly. But in the end, it's just better to be more careful than is even necessary. Better be safe than sorry. That's also the reason why I save the game almost any time I come across a typewriter. Which you cannot do if you care about getting an A rank, but to be honest, I could care less about the rank. So even though I didn't end up using any first aid sprays, my advice is to just use them if you need them, even though they do prevent you from getting an A rank. Also, just like in my scenario A playthrough, I will sometimes speed up the footage when there's just running around, backtracking or things like that going on. And I also cut out the parts where you play as Ada, as those two sections are the same on any playthrough. And it makes no difference if you take damage or not. It has no effect on Leon. Also, like before, this is essentially a pacifist run. So we're only going to kill the bosses, and the 1 or 2 times we use the knife against a regular enemy, it is merely to make them fall down so that we can run past them. So the run is not about defeating enemies, the challenge is about how to maneuver yourself in between the enemies. Which, especially because of the camera angles and the tank controls, is really easier said than done. Without a doubt, the controls and the camera are the hardest enemies in the game, in a matter of speaking. So remember that if you want to try this yourself, it looks easier than it actually is. The enemies' movesets aren't exactly extensive, but you kind of don't have that much control over your character either. At least not that it's all that fluent, and because of the camera you're not even always able to see what you're doing. So there's definitely some RNG involved when you have to sort of guess what is coming at you in the next screen. But the thing is that at least to an extent you have some control over that, because the enemies always have the same starting position. Ultimately, more important than skill, the key to this run is to memorize the game, in essence. You know, the weird thing about this A and B scenario thing is that it is clearly intended that both scenarios are taking place at the same time. But you also perform some of the exact same actions that cannot be performed twice. So for example, our first task is to put out the fire in the wreckage of the helicopter, but you do that during both scenarios. Or for example, burning the painting to get the ruby. There are tons of actions like that which are performed by both characters, even though they cannot be performed by both characters. But then there are also actions done by one that affect the other. Like Claire blowing up the wreckage, leaving either the machine gun or side pack behind, etc. So that's kind of a weird design choice. It makes me wonder how it's going to be in the remake, to what extent Leon's and Claire's scenarios will affect each other. Or how they're even going to do that in the remake in the first place. Oh, and of course, if a knife-only playthrough will be feasible. Alright, our first encounter with Mr. X, and getting past him is actually quite tricky, even though it is easy in principle, but it requires a very strict timing. You cannot just run past him, he has a sideway punch specifically designed to make that impossible, but he will always follow up a regular punch with a two-handed overhead attack, and that is the attack where you can run past him. So what we're going to do is to turn around and slowly approach him backwards, to trigger him to do a regular punch, so that then we can run away before it connects. And then because he will inevitably follow up with an overhead attack, we can run past him. However, his punch goes really freaking fast, so this is way harder than it looks. If you cannot do it, you can also choose to run into him and then take a hit intentionally and then run past him, because he will still do that overhead attack. But that does mean that every time you encounter him, you will take damage. Zigzag around the two lickers and hopefully they will not swipe at you. As you know from scenario A, they can be somewhat easily influenced, but these enemies are rather RNG heavy. Also, as soon as you pick up the blue keycard, a licker will drop down from the ceiling window. However, if you run towards the door immediately as soon as you get control back, you will make it past him before he even has a chance to act. Then, to avoid the lickers again, it's best to stick to the left wall and immediately go into the door. As a general rule, never spend more time in a section than necessary. And then we have our first opportunity to save the game and to get rid of any unnecessary stuff, like, you know, a gun and crap like that, which is completely overrated in a zombie apocalypse. I mean, you saw the guy on the roof that made the helicopter crash. Clearly, a knife is superior to a machine gun. I mean, would the helicopter even have crashed if the guy was carrying a knife instead of a machine gun? Technically, there are zombies on the very left side, but we don't even need to go there. So we can just freely go down the ladder and unlock the doors using the keycard we just got. You know, the same keycard Claire got from the wounded police officer, which she will later on use to unlock the same doors. That keycard. The room with the item box on the first floor is actually not safe this time. There are no less than 3 zombies inside. That's the kind of stuff you can expect in scenario B. Fortunately, there is an obstacle in the center of the room, so by circling around it, you can lure the first 2 zombies over to the left, so you can run past them on the right. So then you only have the zombie near the door to worry about. And contrary to scenario A, in the next hallway there is no licker, so you are free to pick up the green herb there. Okay, in this hallway 2 zombies will break through the wall, but if you just immediately get into the door, they will not have a chance to attack you. However, after you acquire the ruby, you need to get back out and then they are going to be in your way. When you leave the room, the zombies are facing away from you and don't even seem to notice you. However, you need the one on the left to move in order to run past them. So that will be one of the few times we actually use the knife on a regular enemy, simply to get him to move, so we have the space necessary to get past him. There are 2 green herbs on the floor here, so don't forget to pick those up. I think that they were also there on scenario A, but back then this section was filled with enemies. So there was no point in trying to get them. Just to emphasize, I will not always go out of my way to pick up every single healing item. Because whenever you are almost guaranteed to take damage in order to get them, it's simply not really worth it anyway. So that's another reason to not take unnecessary hits, because we're not going to pick up every single healing item. Okay, this hallway is a complete clusterfuck. It's filled with zombies. So I'm going to lure the first few over by standing in the corner, because I want them to move behind each other, so there's enough room to run past them on the right side. And then you need to zigzag around the crawling zombie, and then there are 2 more behind that one. And to be honest, it was a bit of luck I managed to avoid getting grabbed there, because there's hardly any room left to avoid them.
Hey, wait!
Leon!
Claire, you made it!
Yeah. Have you seen a little girl around here?
Yeah, you just missed her. Who is she?
I don't know. But it's too dangerous for her to stay here alone. Leon, I'll go look for her. You go and find us a way out of here.
Of course. But before I forget, here's a radio. That way we can keep in touch if something comes up.
I'll go look for her. You go and find us a way out of here.
Okay, same clusterfuck again, but now in reverse. And I don't even know how to avoid damage this time. So for the 3 in the back, I simply run into them, and then I push the one that's biting me away, so he knocks the other ones on the ground. Yeah, it's not ideal, but damn, this is an example of too many enemies and too little space. Alright, another room filled with zombies, but this time you have a little bit more space to move around, and you can use the large table in the center to your advantage. Zombies are slow after all, so just lure them around the table. But be careful though that unlike in scenario A, the wounded police officer is already a zombie this time, and therefore already active. Oh, and don't forget the green herb, of course, if you have the opportunity to pick it up. Alright, so now we have the hard key, it is already time to make our way to the sewers and the cell where Ben is. But make sure you go the long way around, because the short route contains a fuck ton of zombies. Also, since we have both rubies now, we might as well use them already. This does mean getting past the lickers again, and this time I do take a hit. And especially inside the room where you need to use the rubies, There's almost no way to avoid getting hit by the liquor inside that room, as you will see. However, one thing I should have remembered earlier is that liquors can be influenced by walking very slowly, which you have seen me do before in scenario A. So when I get back out, I do actually use this to prevent taking another hit. So, as you can see, if you walk slowly, lickers tend to not be aggressive. Moreover, this one is facing away from me, so as soon as it shows signs that it is aware of my presence, I can already run past it before it has the chance to hit me. Even so, lickers are still a bit of a pain. They are quite RNG heavy, regardless of what you do. Okay, now let's save the game again, and then there's basically nothing in our way before we have our first encounter with Ada, with the exception of a single dog. Namely in the hallway beyond the door for which we needed the hard key. And I will basically use the same tactic to get past him as against the lickers. Don't run, so it will take a while before he gets aggroed.
Sorry about that. When I saw the uniform, I thought you were another zombie.
Who are you?
Ada Wong.
And what are you doing here?
I'm looking for some guy named Ben. He's one of those reporter types, always looking for a scoop. I heard he was locked up in the cell block, only there's a wrecked car barring the entrance. I've been trying to find another way inside. If we work together, we can move this thing. Give me a hand here, will you?
Let me guess. You must be Ben, right? Get up, now!
What do you want? I'm trying to sleep here.
Is this the guy?
Ben, you told the city officials that you knew something about what's been going on, didn't you? What did you tell them?
And who the heck are you?
I'm trying to find my boyfriend. His name's John. He was working for a branch office of Umbrella based in Chicago, but he suddenly disappeared 6 months ago. I heard a rumor that he's here in the city.
I don't know anything. And even if I did, why would I want to tell you?
Okay, I say we leave him in there. Does anyone know where they put the key to this cell?
I have it right here, officer. But I'm not about to leave this cell. Those zombies aren't the only things crawling around out there.
What was that?
Like I said, I'm not leaving this cell. Get out of here before you lead it right to me.
Hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the only cop left alive in this building.
What?
Look, if you want to live, then you're gonna have to leave with me.
But do you even know how to get out of the city? There's a kennel in the back of the building. Inside the kennel is a manhole. Go through and it'll lead you to the sewer entrance, but it won't be easy.
All right, I'm going.
Alright, let's pick up the manhole opener so that we can get down into the sewers. There is a green herb and a blue herb in the cell next to Ben. Now in the room where the manhole is, there is a red herb you can pick up. However, as soon as you do, you will get ambushed by a couple of dogs, so I don't think it's really worth the risk. So that's one of those healing items that I intentionally leave behind. I also didn't bother with the blue herb, but that was actually not that smart, because if you get hit by a spider, you get poisoned. However, if you get poisoned, there is a blue herb also on the ground in the safe room when you exit the sewer again. Stick to the right wall to avoid the first spider and then simply push yourself quickly past the second one before it has the chance to attack you. By the way, I do hope that it's not confusing whenever I say left and right because of the changing camera angles. I'm going to already place the first chess piece, which is by no means necessary, but you need to enter that room anyway to trigger the second appearance of Ada. And this way you don't have to carry all chess pieces at once anyway.
Ada? I don't think I've introduced myself yet. My name's Leon. I'm with the RPD. It's a dead end.
You think we can get upstairs, Shaft? Give me a boost. I'll go and check. How cute. That little girl must have dropped this. I think I'll hold on to it for her. Leon, can you hear me?
Ada, did you find anything?
Right here. Hey, I can't reach the ventilation hole. I'm going to have to find another way around. I'll catch up with you later.
What? Ada, wait!
I found the girl, and I've cleared the wreckage that was blocking the corridor.
Got it.
Alright, that's it for the first episode of Scenario B. Nothing too complicated yet, but of course, next episode we are going to have our first boss fight in Leon's storyline. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and don't forget the notification bell, and stay tuned for the next episode.